Hello, good morning, everybody.
Hey, good morning. Hello, everyone. I'm just admitting everyone else on to the session. It's good to see you guys here. We'll just wait a minute for everyone else to jump on. If you can keep yourselves on mute for the time being or say hello, either one's fine. It's good to have you all here. Hey, Carlo. Hey, Jay. Good to see you here. All right, guys. Well, I think let's get cracking into it. Hey, Lyndon. Hey, Amber. Hey, Babu. Hey, Justine. Good to see you guys all here. All right, let's start with the disclaimer as I usually do. So, by continuing on this call, you agree that any information provided by me on this call or any call is provided as general information and for general information purposes only. I've not taken your personal and financial circumstances into account when providing information. The information is not intended to imply any recommendation about any particular financial product or class of financial products and should not be reasonably be regarded as being intended to have such an influence. The information provided must be verified by you prior to you acting or relying on the information by an independent professional advisor, including a legal, financial, or taxation advisor. And finally, the information may not be suitable or applicable to your individual circumstances. Okay, I'll admit everyone else onto the call. Obviously, we've had daylight savings, so maybe some people are not here because of confusion and all that sort of thing that always happens. But thank you for everyone who has made it. It's always good to see you guys here. Thank you so much for making time and, of course, investing in yourselves. Like I always say, congratulations to everyone who's bought properties over the last 7 days since we had our last session. Yeah, I think there was a number of emails that I got, people sharing their deals. So yeah, it's fantastic. I always love to find out about those deals. The purpose of these sessions is to support and guide you so you can get the best results from the course. And of course, all my clients are welcome to attend. If you're new to the course, welcome. Good to see you here. If you are here, or if you're watching or listening to the recording, thank you for doing that too. You're most welcome to leave your cameras on. You don't have to, of course. And these sessions happen, like I said, every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or Brisbane time, not to be confused with Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is Sydney, Melbourne time, which is 9 a.m., not 8 a.m. All right, so if you're new to the course, like I always do, I'll just share my screen real quick right now. And okay, let's get that back up. I'll share my screen right now and share with you two things. The first thing I want to take you through is the community forum. So you'll see that on your screen right now. So when you log into the course, you'll see the course and the community forum. This community forum is incredibly active. There's, I think, well over 5,000 questions and answers here from a very active, you guys basically. So if you have questions about anything under the sun, please go and ask your questions here. And, every single question gets answered by Samir or myself within 24 to 48 hours. And of course, everyone else chips in from time to time as well when they can. Your questions might already be answered. Like chances are that the suburbs that you're thinking about, or, let's say a particular question you have around or CMA or strategy or anything at all, tax, etc. Chances are, with them, with so many students having gone through it and here for multiple properties, they've probably asked it before. So if you use the search the community function here and put in some keywords, you might realize that your answer is already there on demand. And of course, there's the FAQ reference sheet as part of the downloads of each module of the course, which should also steer you in the right direction. So please make the most of this. And the other thing I want to share with you is where all of these mentoring calls are archived. So this is in the wrap-up section of the course after week 6. And so you can scroll all the way to the bottom. There's hundreds here. And so you can see last week on the 1st of October, we went through Q&A. Previous to that, we had one of our members, Imish, share how he successfully bought 2 WA properties in 2 months after actually failing 4 times. So this was a really interesting session because he actually spent more time on how he was not succeeding, and the lessons that he learned from those attempts and how they kind of ultimately allowed him to succeed twice. So that was a really interesting session. Before that, we had Prashant take us through. I bought 4 properties in under 1 year. In his own words, it was easy. So different members have, different experiences. And so if you're finding it difficult, you might want to watch this session to figure out how was it so easy for him and what you can emulate. Before that, we had Reese take us through how he bought 4 properties since 22 and actually focusing on dual occupancy properties so that his portfolio can remain positive cash flow so he can afford to keep buying more. That's always a common question we have from folks on how to buy properties that almost or basically take care of themselves. And then before that, we had our quarterly update on the most interesting suburbs under 500K and over 500K across Australia. So if you're new to the course, might be a good idea to check those 2 sessions out, or if you're returning after many months or perhaps even years and you're ready to grow to your next property, then those suburb deep dive sessions that I do every quarter will steer you in the right direction. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. All right, cool. So yeah, so hopefully that made sense. Let me just admit everyone else onto the call who's in the waiting room. All right, so the process by which we'll run today is much like a couple of weeks ago. We'll have one of our members share with us their entire portfolio, basically, of which there are many, many properties. I'm very excited. I'll introduce them in a second. You can ask any questions at any time during the session today. You can just open up the Zoom box. And if you're addressing your question to me, you can just put my name, PK, comma, or hyphen, ask your question so I know it's directed at me. Or if you're asking our member, Jay, who will be presenting today, you can just put in Jay and a comma or a hyphen. And, if there's anything he said that you want more insight or information about, then you can just put his name and ask your question, and I'll read out your question to him. And so we can cover all of them that way. You can ask about anything in the course as long as you've done that particular part of the course. But I do ask just maybe limit it to a couple of questions per person to give everyone an opportunity. Of course, we can't go through entire suburbs on these sessions. So if you're asking about a suburb, try to be specific, which factor you're not sure about. And lastly, please don't be shy. I say this every single time. I think I've said it hundreds of times. I'm genuinely here to help you. There's no such thing as a silly question. All right, well, without further ado, let me make sure that Jay can unmute his microphone. I just want to introduce Jay Gandhi, who is on the top right of my screen. Good to see you there, Jay. First time I'm seeing you actually, which kind of feels weird given we've interacted a little bit before. Jay's done terrifically. I mean, really, really tremendously well. He's bought 6 properties. Like when I got an email from him in, I think it was the start of September, he had just finalized his 6th property. So that was 6 properties in literally 12 months. He bought the first one in August 2023. And I mean, yeah, they're in different states, WA, Queensland, also Victoria, which I thought, we could explore a little bit today as well, given that some suburbs are popping up in Victoria, and it seems to be the flavor of the month, especially for those people who are a little bit fried by finding it so difficult to buy in, let's say, regional Queensland. But Jay's done just really, really well. He had the right mindset. He found that you're really crafting a real solid strategy in terms of the quantum wealth creation strategy tool. Really allowed it his mindset, I think, more than anything, into the right direction, and he just went really hard. So I really admire Jay from basically just putting his foot on the gas and going from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, so to speak. And I think we can learn a lot from him. So yeah, I just want to invite you on, Jay. Thank you for making time, and on behalf of the community, really grateful that you're offered to do this.
Thank you, PK, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Hopefully everyone else can hear you too. Maybe it's a little bit soft. I don't know if you can turn your microphone up a little bit or come a little bit closer or something like that. I think it
Yeah,
should be
can you hear
okay.
now? Is it better?
Yeah, can you guys hear him as well? Just give it a thumbs up or like just put something yes in the chat. You can hear him okay? All right, cool.
Yeah,
I think
I
I think
better now. So you can
think we're good
phones
to
off.
go. All right.
Yeah, okay.
All
Can I
right, Jay.
share my?
Well, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You can share your screen. I think I've just allowed that now, so you should be able to
yeah,
do
okay.
that now.
Before I do that, just wanted to thank you, PK. I think it's been a fabulous community that you have built. And there's one reference I'll update in my PPT. That's for you. I hope that's okay with you.
No problem. No problem. So let me know how you want to do this.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm most happy to ask you questions and direct it, or if you have something to share, you can lead the conversation and I can interject from time to time, whichever you
Yeah,
prefer.
sure. Yeah, just this one. If you can see the screen.
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So just a quick update on how I went. I didn't go into the property details because I thought the last two sessions did a lot of justice to it. So I focused on the bigger picture, which is predominantly your week one.
Okay.
So, okay, just context. So, me and my wife are a simple immigrant couple you will see everywhere. So, there's nothing extraordinary about us. Uh, the more important thing is the reason we want to achieve the goal is not for the goal itself, but what we become in the process. And that's my second point. For me, achieving the goal is good, but what we become in achieving the goal is far more significant for me. So, that's one thing. That we are focusing on. The third was we took action straight away. I remember within, I think, 12 hours after I got my PR, we locked in with a call with Samir, and within 24 hours, we had started with the course. So it was very prompt in the way we wanted to go ahead. And one thing I realized when I did the week one session was your income is basically what drives your property portfolio in terms of your borrowing capacity. I know this is the basic as it gets, but I found there's a lot more noise about the mortgage broker. But for me, a mortgage broker is just someone, if I have the income, a competent mortgage broker will help me secure the property. So my focus was always on the income we can create. And what I did was I worked backwards of how many properties I wanted. So what was the borrowing capacity I needed? And then for that borrowing capacity, what was the income I required? And during that time, I think it was December 2022, I realized we are falling short by a mile. So that's when we decided for 6 months, we'll focus on our income, keep the property aside, and we achieve our first milestone in 6 months. And then within the next 11 months, we pick your five. The sixth one is still in the unconditional phase, so haven't included here, which I will refer down the line.
Right, right.
Let's go. Is it okay, the pace, or am I going too fast?
No, that's perfect. I actually just want to dive a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
if with your permission, Jay, on your first point here, doing our best to see what we become in the process. So many times, myself included, like I'm fixated on the goal or the
Mhm.
outcome, and I judge myself uh, and almost like how good I am based on what I've achieved at the end, rather than
Mhm.
focusing on who I've become during the journey. Um,
Mhm.
so I just want to really unpack your mindset. You said you and your partner, you wanted to improve or grow and focus on what and who you become during the process. Well, what did you mean? What do you mean by that? And like, where does that sort of um, mindset come from?
Yeah, okay. I'll use your example if that's okay. So I think you started quite early in your property journey, and I think by age of 31 or 32, you achieved the 12 properties you wanted to achieve. So what I mean here is, if there are two options, whether to take your 12 properties or to take what you PK, what you have become in the process, I will always choose the PK that has become in the process than your goals, because you achieve those goals, so you know what you have become. And for me, that's important far more than your 12 properties, if
Right,
that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm certainly no, you know, no gold standard in this point, but I really like this point. And I think it's a really, I know that people always want to know what are the next hotspots, what are the next tactics, what are the next strategies, how can I make money? But I really implore and encourage everyone, now that you've reminded me of this point, to enjoy the process. And like, every time you kind of don't get what you want, then like use it as a learning opportunity, not just a technical learning opportunity, but how can I use this to improve my character? And how can that then be a skill, a character skill set that can be utilized in other facets of life? I know I'm extrapolating your point a little bit, but it's just some things that come to mind given that you've put it there.
Yeah, okay. No worries. Good. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I've been on a tangent there, but carry on.
That's okay. No, I think that was the main point I wanted to drive also down the line.
Sure.
So I'll get that. So thank you. And then, yeah, once we hit the first milestone, it was a cakewalk, basically to buy 5 in 11. And I'll refer back to the next one, next slide.
Hmm.
So this is where we stand. I haven't included the sixth property for a reason. I'll refer that later down. So we wanted to keep it simple. So the first one was under my wife's name, and the next four were in my names. So at this stage, we are at 2.7 and with a mortgage of 1.8 mil. And out of this, I think we have, from memory, I think we have more than 500K equity in just 1 year, which will help us for the next one. And if you look at the suburbs, it's Mirrabooka, East Bunbury, and Cranbrook. That was last quarter of last year, so December, around December.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then Kangaroo Flat was bought with a strategy where I wanted to use extract equity, and for some reason that owner had did exactly what PK tells not to do in a 6 weeks in a six in renovations. So it did everything. So that was ideal for me. So I'm looking to extract equity from that. The data wasn't ideal when I bought in Kangaroo Flat. There's a lot of land around, but the deal was too good to be missed. And because I had bought in three properties in a hot suburb, I was okay to go in a cooler suburb. And the second last was in Dallas, which is a suburb in Melbourne North, and it's been growing phenomenally. I think I couldn't be proud of this investment in Dallas.
Right. Can we just touch on the kangaroo
Mhm.
flat one? I don't know if
Yeah.
you have other slides on it as well. Um,
Mhm.
is what you're suggesting that the previous owner put in too much of a renovation, like overcapitalized on the renovation, and therefore like you were able to get it significantly cheaper than what they must have spent on it. And then what do you mean? Could you just clarify what you mean by like being a bit able to take equity out? Could you just run us through that for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. So what I'm trying to say, yeah, exactly what you said. So it was an owner occupied who had moved from Queensland to Bendigo, I think 8 to 10 years back, and then he had to move back to Queensland for his job. So he had renovated the place as if he's gonna be there forever. Like the whole bathroom was styled, kitchen was brand new, the floorings were brand new, it was as good a house from inside as a new, but externally he hadn't looked at it. There was no landscaping done, there was no painting done from the exterior. So the house wasn't as attractive to look at it should have been, with all the work that has gone in. So from memory, I think he spent around 75K doing the interiors, which is a lot for that type of property,
Oh,
which is
wow.
early 400s, and the land is around 600, I believe.
Right, right. Okay.
So
And
what?
I know I notice here that your leverage ratio in the final column is 66%. Um,
Mhm.
I'm sure people are wondering, when you purchased the properties, did you go in with an LVR of 80%? And is it because of the growth that it's come down to 66, or did you go on with above 80% LVR when you first bought them?
No, all were 80, apart from the last one where I extracted equity from a previous property. So I'll say the first four are 80%, and the last one is 100%. 106, I even
Uh,
extracted the stamp duty.
oh wow. Okay. Okay. So that last one was bought with none of your own
Yeah,
cash per
yeah,
se. So that's quite. Yeah, that's quite remarkable. Like, given that your purchasing LVR on average must have been in the mid 80s, obviously the
Mhm.
bunch of 80 and then one at 100 and something percent, 106% or whatever, then it's gone from kind of low to mid 80s on average down to 66 within 6 months, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
decent.
yeah. Like just the first one, Mirabuka, I bought it around late 400s, and it's given me more than 200K of equity, and that's
Right.
helping me a lot for the next ones.
Got it. Got it.
And the reason has been, I'll mention that down the line, is I wanted the first three to be in the hottest market. So it has to be the top three markets in the country. Otherwise, I don't want to buy it. And that was to build my competency and experience to buy in a hot market. And once you have that behind you, then buying in Kangaroo Flat and Dallas during that period is it's absolutely a cakewalk.
Okay. Right, right. Was the buying in Mirabuka a cakewalk for you, or was that really stressful? What was your experience like?
I have because I'm in consulting firm in infrastructure space, so this job doesn't comes very natural to me. Mirabuka was on the market, but I was the only guy who saw that property because the owner had a relationship with the existing tenant, and they didn't wanted them to. The tenant was going through the rough patch. He lost two of his son, so they wanted, I think, 50% deposit before someone sees the property. So we put in a clause there, subject to building and pest, and my property manager seeing the property, I'm ready to put in 15K. That was a big risk to take on, but I knew what I had. The clause could get me out of it. So I put in 50K for my first ever offer
Right,
in
right.
Mirabu.
Okay.
And that was also my first offer, same with East Penbury and Cranbrook. So I put three offers, and these were my three properties.
That's very unique. I wanted to ask more about that, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you have one or two more slides. I'll
Yeah, just
save
two
my
more.
questions towards the end.
Yeah. And this was the mindset I went through. I'll quickly go through it. I think I'm touch base. The first three I wanted to buy in a hot suburb to gain the experience and competency. I'm just repeating myself here. In Australia, if you work in infrastructure space or any other space, be on a point. Everything works on relationships. It's a big country, but a very small market. And building that relationship with the real estate agent is a must if you want to buy in hot markets. And taking on the risk, if you have a mitigation strategy, can be rewarding. Like even in a cold market, like which is not so hot, a hot offer is always seen in a good way. So never be afraid to put in hot offers, even if the market is cool. And one thing that helped me buying in Perth is having a word with the local town planner. And the reason is in Perth, I always wanted to buy a property which was on a corner plot. And the way I define a corner plot is that the streets, two streets should have two different names. And then you can use the exemption that is being laid by the state government, where an R20, which basically, if you need to subdivide it, needs to be 900 square meters. But if it's in a corner plot, you can get away with 700 square meters as well. So both the properties one in Mirabuka and East Penbury, are in a corner plot more than 700 square meters. So the point is to subdivide them down the line.
Right.
And and so from here, where we go, PK, it's okay if I go through this one and then I'll come back to
Yeah,
you.
please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next one from here, where we go. So the sixth one, which we believe will be settling in May 2025, it's bought with a bunch of other property investors in a trust firm. So it's in Pascoe. I know Pascoe's townhouses are coming up in data. So we try to create three at the rare. And we took 9 months settlement because this was our first ever time. And we believe with interest rates almost there for a cut in near future, we thought to buy time and have the settlement for 9 months. And in coming months, my wife will achieve her financial milestone, which I had set for herself. and that will open up for two more properties of 500K in next 2 to 3 months. And for the eight ones, we're looking to buy in that self-managed super fund. 9 and 10, like I referred, and it will be in Mirabuka and East Penbury of how we go in terms of subdivision, and the experience will be learned from what we do in Pascoe. And the 11th will be our primary place of residence. I think that's for now, and then we'll see what happens in June 26.
Right.
And this is one concept, PK. I wanted to put it for everyone if you're okay. It won't
Yes,
take much
please.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
okay.
ahead. Take your time.
Yeah. So what happens is I bank with Macquarie for five mortgages. And when I asked them for 400K interest only and 400K principal and interest, so this is the rates they gave me. So let's take this one. So 400K, 6.45%, and interest is 6.75. So the delta, we call it difference is 0.30. So let's see how much it's costing us. So if you go through the calculation, it basically says, I know everyone says about cash flow that interest only gives you cash flow, but at what price was my question. So in cash flow over in 12 months, you're saving 4,128, but the cost you're paying is $1,200. For me, it's like you're borrowing $4,000 at 29% per annum, which is 1,200 divided by 4,128. And what I've learned from the mortgage broker is interest only affects your borrowing capacity. Because we wanted to maximize our borrowing capacity, we had we went ahead with principal and interest only. And for all of you who want to go interest only, just do this calculation and understand what's the price we are paying for the cash flow. So that's something I wanted to bring up to everyone's attention.
Oh, that's a terrific value add. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's a very important point. Um, Yeah, the delta isn't so big on this one, right? Sometimes the delta can be larger. It can
Yeah.
be like almost one whole percentage point.
Mhm.
I think right now the net interest margin of various banks are like being squeezed very hard. So I think this makes a lot of sense. But I like it how you framed it on,
Mhm.
you're effectively paying the 29%, penalty for
Mhm.
like an interest for not actually saving that much cash flow. And so in one of your earlier slides when you had shared the portfolio budgeting tool, and I think it said that you were like $35,000 in total in the
Mhm.
red. So that includes the principal and interest. Am I correct, or is that just on an interest only basis?
It's on the interest only, and just here it's around 20K of that is in maintenance cost. I'm a bit conservative there, so that's
Mhm.
why I wanted 20K. So if you remove the maintenance, it will be 15K negative.
20K
And
maintenance.
yeah, over
Right.
five property.
And what's the average annual maintenance that you've budgeted for? Like 2,000 or something?
4,000 I've gone on
Oh,
each
you've gone
4,000.
extra.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Just so be on conservative side, but
Got
yeah.
it. Got it. Got
And
it.
it's before tax, so there's depreciation as well on three properties. So it doesn't hurting me a lot, to be honest.
I see. I
And
see.
the reason we were able to go principal and interest is because we have a buffer. So this buffer is 6 months of principal and interest payments across properties and 12 months of our personal expenses. So that's the minimum I always have in my offset account.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all I had to present at this stage.
Okay. Um, all
Yeah,
right.
and the
Well,
last,
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
just one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and this is the point I wanted to drive. So, oops. So the reason I was able to negotiate very hard for Mirabuka, East Banbury, and Cranbrook was because I had done the 35 factors for the suburbs and the property. And the difference I found is I had so much conviction. Like in stock market, we say, you can buy the tip, but you can't buy the conviction I have in the tip. So,
Mhm.
so that's something I wanted every one of us to learn, that if we do the research, when the times comes for negotiation, you exactly know what you're trying to buy in which suburb. So paying 5,000, 10,000 extra doesn't hurt you because it's a hot suburb.
Right, right. It's such an excellent excellent journey and so well presented. I have a bunch of questions, but
Yeah.
guys, if you have questions for Jay, please put them in the chat box right now. Just open up the Zoom chat box and ask him. You know, there's really no other places that you can get to talk with a kind of live investor who's still on their journey and is willing to share so much information. And he must have learned, you know, Jay must have learned so much already during his sort of 5/6 purchases. So make the most of this opportunity to ask him questions. But some questions that are on my mind, Jay. So you know, the three properties that you bought in the three hottest markets, the first three, you said you don't have to mess around with like getting rejected on different offers. For each of them, you put in one offer and you were accepted. Um, you juxtapose this with 2 weeks ago, we had you know, a member on, and he actually very usefully took us through how he actually was rejected 4 times before being accepted on one offer. And previous to that, we've had members share how they've been rejected 16 times before being accepted on one offer. So I just wanted to ask, from your perspective, I know you did touch on it before, but you've done this consistently now. It wasn't a fluke. So like, was it just a case of like offering 5 or 10,000 more, or like, how were you able to be so clinical and successful in your first three incredibly hot market deals?
Yeah, I think it comes back to your course where you taught us how to build the relationships. And because I'm in that job every day, working the commercial space of infrastructure, like I'll use one example. I think anyone who is bought in north side of Perth should know John Trans. I think he's the owner, he's the principal at one of the firm's hardcore initiatives. So it just my initial call was always to build the relationship. Even if I wanted to buy in Mirabuka, I wasn't calling him. My first few calls was just to see how the market is going. And one tip I always have for him is, can you send me your selling capability statement? So I want him to see me as a potential buyer. So he's not just going to make money because I'm buying from him. He's also going to make money because I'm going to sell it to him down the line. So it's not
Ah,
that I'm committing to him. I'm just asking, can you send me your selling capability statement? And that
right.
has been my case across the three. And even I think the one we bought in Pasco, well, we actually went. One of my partners went for a dinner with him. So just build the relationship, and it can be through any way. I remember when I bought in East Bunbury, I did a bit of research and helped her plan her weekend trip because she was going with a partner to somewhere camping. So just do 15 minutes, just help them build the relationship, get personal, and then properties for you. Like, they have to sell it to anyone, so it might be you.
Right, right. And you mentioned before as well that you, as soon as you got a PR, you then did the course. You know, you booked a call with Samir, did the course, and then you took, you know, your time to get your ducks in a row with respect to borrowing capacity and dealing with the mortgage broker, etc. And then you just went bang, 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 bang. There's a In that light, there's a question here from someone saying, "I'm sitting on the fence, unable to make a decision to buy my first investment property. Every suburb and property, I tend to find issues that leads to doubt." So instead of me answering that, of course, I can give it a shot. But I thought I'd ask you because you've just bought 6 properties. So how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think there will be doubts. There's no perfect suburb. Like even in Dallas and Mirabuka, there's a perspective. They're rough suburbs, but there'll always be doubt, I'll say. But I think we should just look beyond that noise. And I think in your course you mentioned what we learn in the course will take us one in the top 1% of property investors. So I think we just back ourselves, just believe you are in top 1%. What happens later on, we'll see. At least believe and take the call. So it should be okay. I believe if it just takes the call.
Right, right. Um, and I think you're rent vesting. Is that, are you
Yeah,
renting
that's
at the moment? Because you said your
yeah.
plan was, you know, then there's the development project and then there's the SMSF
Mhm.
two planned, and then because your wife's income has changed, so then there's another two planned for about
Yeah.
$500,000 each, and then your principal place of residence. I can't do the math in my head. That's probably like your 10th property or 11th or something. Um, just in terms of this rent vesting journey, because I know a lot of people in the course are rent vesting. Is there, how have you found it? Like, is it annoying to be a renter, because you don't have that sort of certainty and you have a family, right? So you don't have that certainty of being in the same house for many years on end, especially in the rental crisis. I'm sure your rents have been rising. Like, how's that dynamic and how did you guys decide that, yes, you're going to rent vest?
Yeah, in fact, I found it the more I am rent resting, I realize that maybe I don't need a primary place of residence. I just like
Okay.
being
All
bored.
right.
And the reason is because the suburbs which I live, the yield is around 2-3%. Like I live in a suburb called Chapel Hill, which is on the western side of Brisbane.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you want to buy the house, it's 1.7, 1.8 mil, and I'm able to rent it for 2 and a 3% yield. So like for me, it just doesn't make sense. And in terms of moving, I said, okay, what rent do you want? And if they give me a number, I say, okay, paid. Just don't me allow. Just let me stay on, because that's what they want. And I pay my rent well in advance, and they can see my
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, so they know how much we make. I tell them my ratio is less than 12, 13%, and then she's happy. So that's why I said I think relationship is the heart of everything you do in Australia.
Mm-hmm. And then on that,
And in,
sorry,
yeah, go
sorry, go
ahead.
on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you said relationship is the heart of everything you do in Australia. I know because you work in, infrastructure consulting, perhaps, this comes easily for you. Some of us, like me, who are perhaps a little bit shy, and other people who are on this call who are maybe less confident in themselves. Maybe they come from different, types of professional backgrounds. How can we build our confidence to build a relationship with, agents or property managers? Like, how do we even start that?
Yeah. I think you have told this answer to me long time back. It was just pick up the phone and call. It sounds very simple, but to be honest, that is what that is. To pick up the call, and I want, like, one of the tips. I can't tell you what I do. Like, will be very personal, but I want the selling agent to see me as a client. I don't want him to see me as a buyer. And how you do that, it's up to you. You can, you just ask them for selling material. The time they see, or there is more coins from you in the future, they will give you the property.
Right, right. I actually think that's a really golden tip, and I think you've kind of played too much of your cards already, but I just want to amplify that and make sure everyone understands like that's such a commercially astute point. It's a small point, but it's I think a very heavy point. It's very heavy with potency because yeah, like sales agents, especially right now, they find it hard to get clients because there's hardly anyone selling properties. And so if you come across to them as a potential client in the future, maybe you could position it as if you're flipping the property in like 1 year or 6 months or 2 years, whatever strategy or methodology you take. But if they see that they can then make 3% off you in 6 months or 1 year, then like chances are they're gonna sell you that property even if you don't have the highest bid. Because at the end of the day, for better or worse, everyone is to make money and everyone has an agenda. So if you use that agenda and human nature in your favor, then I mean, I don't want to steal all your thunder, Jay, but it seems like that's what you've done really well. So I think it's not something I teach in the course, and probably I should put it in there and give you some credit because I think that's a really important thing. It's yeah, very, very golden piece of advice there, Jay. Um, and last question from me before I take the ones that were from the chat. And guys, if you have any other questions from Jay, please put them in the chat. Um, you've bought a number of properties now in Victoria. Now it's very easy, quote unquote, to buy in WA, in Queensland, because we see the prices rising. We know that everyone's talking about them. We can see it's a hot market. It's almost like a safe purchase in many respects. And in fact, I think that was your mindset. That's why you bought the first three in a hot market. How did you build confidence to like then go to Victorian suburbs like Kangaroo Flat, which are kind of investing against the herd, against the grain? I know that they're rising. Of course, they're rising because the data is good. But like, did that come easy for you? Because, clients have only started investing again in Victoria this year. So, you're still pretty early. How did you get that conviction?
Yeah. Firstly, is data. Like I wouldn't lie. Second is the work I do. I can't reveal much about what I do, but one thing that has been in news recently is the Sydney Airport extension. So that was the business study I did in May last year. So that's just come to the market. So we do get insights of what's happening. So we tell the government where it needs, and something is happening similar on the north side of Melbourne. So there are two announcements are in public now. One is the light part that's happening because that will attract a lot of money in there, and the second is the Broadmeadows becoming a hub. So there are only three hubs in Victoria, and one of them will be Broadmeadows. So that's where it comes. So I do get a bit of entail, but that's just on an infrastructure level. And just a
Right.
piece of advice: if you're trying to make money because there's an infrastructure project going on there, you're pretty late to the party. The project that is happening in Sydney, Grandfield, the land was purchased in 2018. So 6 years before the project actually is announced, the land is procured. So that's,
Brilliant.
yeah.
It's good to triangulate what the data is showing, like the microeconomic data, suburb data, LGA data with any other data sources. So thanks for sharing that. Let me read out a few questions here for you from the chat. You don't have to answer them, like if they're a
Mhm.
bit private, but Chris is asking, hi Jay, which mortgage broker are you with? Do you want to share that or not?
I've just went my cousin. She's just starting a business, and with my borrowing capacity, like I said, I all respect to the mortgage broker, but I believe my income should cover whatever incompetencies they have.
Okay. All right, cool. Um, I think the deposit one was already answered. Um, once again, maybe a personal question, but if you don't want to answer, it's fine. Hi, Jay. If you don't mind me asking, how much cash in total did you put into the first five properties?
If you multiply to 1.8, it's just around 300 to 350 from, yeah, just around there.
Right. And one of them was funded entirely through equity.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
that's as you mentioned before. This is a good one from MKJ. Did you ever feel ha you missed the boat when you were, investing in those hot markets?
Yes, I think every investors will feel so, I believe. But it's only when you look back at saying, oh, that was the right thing. And one thing for me was properties is never, it's still not my, it's not, I firmly believe you will make money. I still believe stock market is far better an investment than property when you compare cash on cash. But if you
Okay.
see leverage, then of course property makes more sense.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yes, to answer this question, yeah, it feels, but it's okay.
Okay.
I'll say 3 years down the line, someone else will feel the same. So let's, for now, it's us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. PS is saying, well done, Jay. Congratulations. Hey, Jay, good job. Thanks for sharing. Did you set up individual trusts for each property? What is the trust structure?
Yeah. So all the five which I procure are in individual name. First on my wife, four on mine, and the sixth one is in a trust structure where we have a unit structure and then we have family trust structure owning them.
Okay, cool. Vishal saying, Jay, congratulations on wonderful achievements. Very impressed with the clarity and mindset you have. We already covered DSB's question. Tao is asking, hi Jay, how did you do your CMA? And any tips on how to make your offer more attractive apart from building relationship with agent?
Yeah, so CMA was as you thought, that was the done, and the numbers latest I gave were done by Macquarie, who did recently my evaluation. And the offer, like to Thao, was I always give a cash offer, so I don't go around. It's always a cash offer. Second thing is, like in Victoria, there was no offer on both the properties. It was a cooler suburb, both of them, but there's a 3 day cooling period. So I made sure my bank gives me a approval within 3 business days, and the building inspector goes in within 3 business days and gives me a report. So if you have the 3 business days, I think it's there in Queensland as well. Then I don't never use any clause as a cash offer. But
Got
you
it.
have to make sure within three days you get everything off sort. If you're not able to, just back off and pay $1,000 or 0.2%, whatever it is.
Right, right. Um, No, that definitely helps if you can go in with a cash offer. Noel is asking, how much did land tax play a role in your Victorian investment? So obviously, land tax is much higher in Victoria, as I think most people know. Was that kind of a deterrent for you, or were you like, oh, it's just part of it, part of cost of doing business?
Yeah, I wanted to include that's a great insight because if you compare the Victorian market, property management is around 5.5%, 6,
Mm-hmm.
while if you go in WA, it's around 8.5. So you save 0.25% there. And yield, 26,000, 2% is around 500, $600 you save. And when you save and your tax is less than $1,000, so it's only costing you $400. So even if you do the maths and the council charges are less, so if you say like for like, I believe your Victorian market will be a bit more cash positive than your WA market, just on that parameters, not talking about the yield.
Oh, that's very insightful. And same with Queensland to some extent. Queensland has higher property management fees, of course, than Victoria. Higher yields, but then, let's say in Townsville, etc., your council rates, sometimes insurance premiums are higher as well. So it's really the net that matters at the end of the day, right? And I think, yeah, it's good to focus on that. So well answered. I really like this. Chris is saying I was a bit frustrated losing offers, but this call has enlightened me and given me more energy. Thanks, Jay. So thanks so much, Chris, for sharing that. Um, Sid, yeah, he's once again reiterating uh, that point that you said around building relationships with agents. He's asking for more tips. I know we've already asked and discussed around agent relationships. Anything that you're holding back, Jay, else you want to share?
Yeah, I won't lie, we took to a fancy, we took the agent from Pascowell property because it was 2.2 mil. We took him for a fancy Melbourne style dinner. And I won't
Okay.
lie, we saved 50K after that. It's flat 50K. Just take
Well,
him to dinner, and yeah, they will
what's a
give you
fancy Melbourne style dinner? What does that mean?
it's like my one of my partners is French,
Okay.
so he knows a few places in Melbourne. He goes there
Okay.
often,
All right.
and and of course give him the carrot that you're gonna sell him. He will have the opportunity to sell.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking 3.2 mil after development, so he's already having 100K in his pocket. So we're
Yeah.
showing him 100K, and once you show 100K, it's very unlikely a sane person will not sell you the property.
Yeah. That's great stuff. Rahul's saying, great work, Jay, and congratulations. Learned a lot from you today. Thank you. What is your rental yield in Dallas and Kangaroo Flat?
So Dallas is 5.1, just there, but I think in Melbourne the market is very mature. Like in terms of property management, is very easy to manage, and in Kangaroo Flat is 5.2.
5.2. Okay. Towels, congratulations. Thanks, Jay, for sharing. And Carlos saying, amazing what you did. Jay made you sound like a pro. Well, yeah, I mean, I think you do sound like a pro. And now that you're doing your first development, you are
Yeah.
becoming very proficient. It's not easy to do like a townhouse development, like a 3-pack, 4-pack, not least in Victoria. The councils aren't always, that forthcoming, but I wish you the best in that. And it sounds like you have a very clear, crystal clear plan. And I think that's what I got most out of the session today. Someone said that you were very articulate, but you're also very articulate with your thinking. You've clearly used the wealth creation strategy tool and the week one strategy, tools and templates in education to be develop a clear plan. And you're just systematically going through that in a matter of fact way, and yeah, just kind of reverse engineering common sense and logic to get things done for yourself. So I think that's amazing. Was there anything else that you wanted that I haven't asked you that you wanted to share for the benefit of everyone, tips, tricks, or just any last pieces of advice?
Now there was an just for yourself, PK. I think I read somewhere a goal achieved is a goal upgraded. And I think it's even if this 11 properties goal is achieved, I think once you reach there, there is another destination, another goal. I think you started with becoming financial independent, and now you're creating us. becoming, goal is to create many of us as financial independent. So no, this is just a goal, 5 years, 6 years. Once you achieve that, there's still more. It's never like you're free. So
Hmm.
it won't take anything more than that for everyone. We all have goals. Once we reach there, we'll have another goals. That just continues.
Yeah. It's a real pleasure and honor to have clients like you because I know that in 10 years' time you'll probably like supersede me in terms of all your achievements and everything like that. So that's it's a good feeling as a mentor or something like that to know that your members or clients or students are doing really well. So congratulations on everything you've achieved, the mood in which you've achieved it, and also just being so generous and just like saying yes when I asked you if you wanted to share your learnings via email and you know to come onto these sessions. So yeah, thanks for having that sort of expansive and abundant mindset, and be cool to maybe do another one of these sessions in a couple of years' time. And you know when you've well, if you've decided to finally end rent vesting and bought your principal place and you've done a bunch of developments, it would be a cool kind of circle back. So yeah, on behalf of the community, Jay, big congratulations to you, and everyone. Please leave some kind words in the chat if you receive some benefit from Jay, and give him a pat on the back. Thanks so much, Jay.
No, thank you, and thanks to everyone who came every Tuesday from last few years. Thanks for the time. It does help us going down the line. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure. All right, guys. Well, I'll use the last 10 minutes to go through the questions that were directed at me. But I just, yeah, this was a really good session. I know it's very low key, but if you just take a few bits and bobs from what Jay said, and I'm not just flattering him, but that point around incentivizing the listing agent to sell you the property because they have a chance at selling it for you in the future, like that's just I don't know why I didn't think of that. I don't know, maybe I'm not smart enough, but that's a really good one. So please take these and implement them, okay? Don't just let it go in one ear and out the other. Please implement it and get amazing deals just like Jay has. All right, so questions for me. First one, Arjun. Morning, PK. My property is currently vacant and is advertised for lease through the current agency. I would like to change property management agencies. My current agency have a 30-day notice period to terminate. I know that for the new agency, it would be easy to take over the property as vacant. However, on the other hand, I'm concerned that changing agencies while the property is vacant will increase the timeline due to handover to find new tenants and potentially have two sets of advertising fees to pay, one from the existing agency and one from the new agency. Should I change agencies now or wait for the new tenants to be found first? So I think Arjun, when I've been in the same situation previously, I've really tried to troubleshoot and find out why the property is vacant. I mean, 1, 2, 3 weeks of vacancy is like completely normal. You don't maybe as a new property investor, we can get all panicky. If the property is vacant for a while because we're like, oh my God, is it ever going to be tenanted? And you start telling yourself these stories, but it will be tenanted. And I think the best thing to do is figure out why is it not being tenanted? 1 or 2 weeks is fine. There might be nothing wrong with it. But if it's, 3 weeks not tenanted, especially like in the current environment, I don't know where you bought, whether it was one that you bought through the course or before doing the course. Try to ask your current property manager, like, what are the problems? You can ascertain their competency by understanding whether they know what their areas of opportunity are or where they're going wrong. If they are like, "Oh, I don't know why it's not being tenanted, we have no idea, I guess it's just a waiting game," then that is potentially red flags for me. And in which case, what I've done in the past is go to another property manager and just share the same details. Here's my property. It's been on the market for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Not, we've had limited interest, not many people coming for inspections, no applications. What's the problem? And they, if the new property management agency says, oh, look, the photos aren't right, or the description isn't great, or, they might identify some weakness, in which case, you might consider changing and then paying two sets of advertising fees, like $300, $300. In the scheme of things, it's nothing, right? So don't beat yourself up over that. But if the other property management agency also says, yeah, it's just, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with this, then it's just a case of the market being a little bit soft for whatever reason in the current time period. Um, and you just have to be a little bit more patient. If you're a little bit more restless, you can also repeat this exercise for another property management agency and another property management agency. Maybe you can get three other opinions, right? And then so you can calibrate what's actually going on. So hopefully that helps. Um, Harish, good morning, PK. Any idea on how I can find the cooler suburb, or do you provide the name of some suburbs where growth has not started? Yeah, so in a week 2 suburb selection system PDF, against the typical value, I think it's the typical value factor, there's like a link, a tutorial link where we've taught you how to find cooler suburbs. It's also in week 2 FAQ reference sheet in the download section. But basically, we've taught you like 3 or 4 metrics to flex further and how to do them. But yeah, to answer your question, I've also provided you with those suburbs in the quarterly top suburbs list mentoring calls, and the last one was done in August. Amber, hey PK, are investing in coastal towns from Mackay absolute beachfront property good to see future growth in your opinion? As DSR criteria is not matching, but I'm thinking it may be behind and cooler market at the moment. When I do the CMA for a particular property is coming in at a lower price when compared to others that have just sold this year on the same street. I do see price growth when I do the CMA for the houses that have just sold. Would appreciate your thoughts. So, like I'm very chaste to the data. I try to not speculate what will happen because that will mean that I just become wrong, yeah, more often than not. So when it comes to considering a location like this, where you're like, oh, I might have something that's a little bit under market value, there's not a whole lot of heat into it. I just refer back to how I teach in terms of how I find cooler suburbs. So if days on market is up near, let's say 80, maybe even 90, but it's been trending down, I'll be interested. If stock on market is, let's say, closer to 2%, but it's consistently trending down for the last 6 to 9 months, then I'm interested. Same with the other metrics that I teach. Even if they're not in our threshold, but if they're trending in the right direction, then you might be ahead of the curve. But if they're not trending in the right direction, then it's just speculation. Then it may be early, you might pick a winner, but you also may not pick a winner. So I know, I mean, I don't know where you are in your risk appetite and your portfolio, but I tend to not want to speculate too much. So yeah, just make sure you consider um, those trends, because buying something under market value in a really soft suburb that doesn't grow for 2 years, sure, you make 20, 30, $40,000 instant equity by buying below the market comparables, but then it just stays like that for the next 2 years. Roshan, welcome to the session. Hopefully enjoyed it. Payal, hi PK and DSR data, the difference between typical value is well below the median 12-month value. Now, you can just ignore the 12-month value altogether. Don't worry about that. It's not something that I teach. It's not something that I cover. You can just ignore it entirely. Just stick to the system in terms of the typical value. Vishal, good morning. A question related to suburb selection. After the algorithm changes in DSR tool, DSR over 55, stat reliability over 51, will the shortlisted top suburbs list still hold, i.e. 10 to 12 after layer 3 and 5 after priority 2, or will it be a bit more due to the change in these values? No, it will still hold. It's like the whole scale changed. It's not that we were more strict or more lenient. It's just the actual scale change. So yeah, as a principle, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of shortlisting the quantum of suburbs. Next one. I'll end with this question from Grace. Good morning, PK. Would you please share your thoughts on where we are now in relation to the property cycle in WA? So WA is obviously a large location. It's a state, so it's hard to comment on like the entire state, because a place like Albany is kind of not as hot as Perth. Perth has very much led the charge I wouldn't say it's at the start of its property boom. Of course, no one will say that, but I don't think it's at the end of its property boom either. Um, I'm always learning as well. I remember back in 2021, I had mentioned that Hobart was probably at the end of its property boom. Um, and I was wrong. We started investing in Hobart around 2015 and had gone consistently up for about 5, 6 years. And statistically, like after 5, 6 years, a boom doesn't carry on. Like there's very little appetite for a boom to carry on because it starts hitting affordability and all sorts of other things. But nonetheless, it went up again for like another 1 and a bit years. And maybe that was because of COVID and stimulus, interest rate drops, everything like that. But nonetheless, I was wrong in that respect. So, and also with a couple of other sort of suburbs, I've been wrong in terms of like when to stop buying there. In other words, the best buying was finished, but they can continue to rise. We'd moved on to other locations. So my learning from this is really that never underestimate. It's like the Titanic. Suburbs, when they start moving, they're very hard to stop, right? The Titanic, it takes a lot to shift that. You can't just put brakes on it immediately. There's so much momentum. Like even last year, we had stopped buying in Adelaide, I think the year before, but last year there was still like, almost 25% growth in Adelaide. And that's because even after the data stops being good, the herd, the mainstream from Facebook groups, YouTube, everyone else, buyers agents, etc. They're still buying in these locations based on sentiment, and so it pushes things up further. So even though I've said in YouTube and on these sessions and on the quarterly suburb calls as well that the best buying in Perth is basically finished, I don't expect it to stop growing. I think it may indeed continue growing for the next 1 or 2 years, but it's very hard to time the top. And therefore, we don't want to take any risks and you know, uh, and buy in a location that's grown by 80%. Sure, it might grow another 30%, but why do that when you can buy in other locations that haven't grown more than 50%? So that's kind of my philosophy and thesis on it. I think, WA isn't growing as fast as it was 6 months ago, although some locations are. But in general, we're probably still a long way away from the top, especially because building approvals is still low and still dropping in some respects in some locations across WA. When interest rates finally do drop, even if that's only by 50 basis points mid next year or whenever, that will act as another tailwind. There's just so much going for WA right now. Iron ore prices hit $90. Even if they hit $60, people thought at under $100 that the market would crash or at least have the legs taken away from it. But right now we're at very ordinary iron ore levels. The mining boom is not existent. Like people say there's a mining boom. There's no mining boom. It's a production boom. There's no new expansionary mines. It's just higher revenue because of iron ore prices being a little bit higher and volumes increasing. But there's no mining boom like there was 10 years ago. So I don't see any bust because of that. So I'm very optimistic. And I think the hundreds of you who have bought in WA should continue to see lots of gains going forward. Hopefully that helps, Grace. I'm not sure if I was very articulate with that, but yeah, those are some of my thoughts off the top of my head. Guys, if I didn't answer your questions, I think maybe there was a few that I didn't get to. Please copy paste them right now and put them into the community forum. I really do want all your questions answered. So please put it into the community forum and everything will be answered there within 24 to 48 hours. I want every one of us, you, to get fantastic deals just like Jay has. So please ask lots and lots of questions so I can help you. The mentorship is on demand as love to find out about them. Please don't, respectfully, if I can ask, don't communicate with me on Facebook Messenger or the Facebook group, SMS, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, phone calls, etc. Keep it to these sessions, the community forum, and private email for individual deals. Like I said at the start, none of this is professional, personal, or financial advice. Please go back and listen to the disclaimer. And I just want to say once again, thank you, Jay, for making time. And hopefully everyone got a ton of benefit from it. Thank you, everyone. Good luck, happy hunting, and have a great day ahead. Thanks so much.